here.
This is our third annual symposium for SingWell. And what we're going to do in this initial session is to contextualize why we're all here. I think you've been to the website, maybe you're a partner, maybe you're involved in the research, but we just wanted to give you a snapshot of what is our purpose, what have we done to date, and where are we going. After that, we'll have a little bit of song. There'll be at least one occasion for that today, and then we'll introduce our keynote speaker. Okay, so SingWell is driving research and practice to help people harness the power of group singing to support well-being and communication. So we are based here at Toronto Metropolitan University, but we involve about 50 of the world's leading researchers in this area. In addition to doing research, we want to partner with organizations in Canada specifically in order to activate them. So that's strong language, but we're interested in knowledge mobilization. There has been very good empirical work on singing for some time. We're doing even better work now. We want to get to the stage where we're actually influencing policy.
And our partners are really important, both for helping us disseminate the information, but also to recruit singers to our choirs. And so we have that bi-directional flow where we're communicating with our partners what we're finding, and then they're providing information to us as well.
And we'll just go back for just a second. I just noticed something on the slide. We're just beyond year 3. This is a 7-year grant. We may end up going to about 7.5, 8 years, but we're almost at the halfway point now.
We actually just submitted our midterm review. I'm going to provide some updates later on because, yeah, we've made it halfway. So congratulations to all of us.
We submitted it at 4:55 last night. It was a high pressure day. Okay, so how do we define communication challenge? It's any condition that affects an individual's ability to produce, perceive, or understand verbal and nonverbal aspects of speech. Okay, so that's critical. We tend to just think about the productive aspects, but there's a receptive side to this too. And it's also the nonverbal aspects that we believe are influenced by singing. There are 5 core areas of communication challenge that we began with, and we've incorporated a new one. So the 5 are aphasia, breathing disorders, or COPD, hearing loss, Parkinson's disease, stuttering, and newcomers. So you'll hear more about newcomers today. It's a different sort of communication challenge. It's not neurological or acquired. It has to do with migration. And it seems to be another important area. So our 2 main pillars in SingWell are knowledge generalization, knowledge generation, I should say, and generalization, and knowledge mobilization. So in addition to seeding these projects around the world with these leading experts and organizing multi-site studies that are very important in establishing a sound scientific basis for what we're doing, we're interested in mobilizing the knowledge. So working with partner organizations, developing things like TikTok videos, YouTube videos, speaking at, doing a lot of public speaking, media interviews. All of this is part of what keeps us and our partners busy. So in the camp of knowledge generation, we have a couple of core research questions. So does group singing support psychosocial well-being in individuals living with communication challenges? So is it making them less stressed? Is it making them feel less alone, more connected? Is it helping their mental health in some way? These are all things that we're trying to track. In some cases, we're looking at the biomarkers that are underpinning some of these changes. So we're tracking things like cortisol, heart rate variability, oxytocin. We're also very interested in whether group singing supports communication function, the productive and receptive aspects. And finally, I guess I've already alluded to the third one, what are the sociobiological underpinnings of these benefits? As much as possible, we'd like to get into mechanisms in order to develop this scientific understanding that not only allows us to advance the knowledge, but fine-tune the application. There are 4 work packages. And this is from the onset of the program. We've modified things a little bit, but we're staying in these lanes. Work package 1 is survey and qualitative assessments. So this is things like asking people who are involved in group singing, what are they getting out of it? Why are they no longer continuing? It's asking choir leaders, what are you doing in order to support and accommodate the diverse needs in your group? What are your strategies? What are you focusing on? So, for example, in Parkinson's disease, we might be focusing on pitch range. In breathing disorders, we might be emphasizing loudness. We want to learn and try to flesh that information out, and that will enable us to do things like develop best practice guides. Work package 2 is really the bulk of our work. This is the effect on targeted outcomes. So the targeted outcomes include, again, communication function, psychosocial outcomes. So the way that we've done work package 2 is that people apply. We have an annual call. It will happen in a little while, I guess in about a month. People submit their proposals, and then an executive committee gets together and we adjudicate these proposals, and we decide whether we want modifications, whether we're going to deny the proposal, or we're going to suggest approval with some modification. So we call those bottom-up generated research activities. We've also instituted top-down activities. And that means that the mothership, if you will, is saying, hey, we really want to know something more and do a really good job of understanding, for example, group singing and stuttering. So the way that we're doing this is that we are coordinating multi-site randomized controlled trials. So it's sort of the gold standard, of course, in medical interventions. And this is a bit of a slippery transition because, as you know, we are SSHRC funded and we want to stay within our SSHRC lane. But we also know that that these RCTs are very important in influencing policymakers. And of course, there could be future adjunct funding that comes from CIHR and other health organizations. Work package 3 concerns social prescription and microeconomics. So is it worth it on a societal level to spend money on investing in these singing groups? There's a cost. We have to get the space. We have to get the choir directors. We sometimes have special equipment. What is the gain? Well, we're working with economics experts who've done this sort of thing. There are concepts like quality adjusted life years, where you can actually assess the economic value of involving yourself in group singing. So that will be a very important outcome, again, for influencing decision makers. Related to this is the idea of social prescription. How many people have heard of social prescription in the room? Okay, maybe half of us. So this is related to the social determinants of health. It's the idea that many of the things that ail us are social in nature. And the reason that many people will walk into a family doctor's office is things like loneliness, depression, social isolation, etc. There may be value in directing funds that would be directed for health purposes in supporting social activities. So a social prescription model can happen in many different ways, and it does do so around the world. But the way that we've been experimenting with it here in Ontario, you'll hear more about this today, is by working with health centers where we have physicians recommending individuals to a particular choir. So for example, a breathing disorders choir. The physicians are aware that this exists within the center, and they will identify people that they think are good candidates, and they'll come, and then we may enroll them in research. So that's work package 3. Finally, work package 4, virtual choirs. Some of you are already working in virtual choirs. They became very popular in the pandemic. Much of this has been done with Zoom. Zoom is effective, but it's not effective in terms of synchronous communication. And we think mechanistically, so much of the benefit comes from synchrony, movement synchrony. So we've been experimenting with low latency technologies that allow us to sing together. Some of our research partners are looking at Zoom choirs, but increasingly, I think you're going to see output from the group that involves this low latency technology that allows all of the choir members to hear the other choir members. So you're not just singing with the choir leader with your mic off. Your mic is on and you're hearing everyone else, and you're getting that feeling of being in a large group and hopefully getting all the social benefits that come from that. So this is the typical research design. It can vary, but typically we run our studies on site for 12 weeks. And we do a baseline and a completion. So there's a battery, a large battery of surveys, and we're interested in changes across those 12 weeks. But we realize that some of the changes are not taking place on that macro scale, they're happening on a micro scale. You go to choir and you go home feeling amazing. We're not going to capture that after 12 weeks. So we have these micro test points. And we typically do these 3 times, sometimes it's 2 times, depending on the pragmatics of the situation. And what we're doing is we're taking a baseline before people start singing and after. So it's a quick set of surveys. Sometimes we administer a pressure threshold. Sometimes we assess a lot. We take saliva so that we can later do assays on that saliva. Sometimes we're collecting HRV data. So that's the typical design for these work package 2 studies. Psychosocial benefits of group singing, telling you what you all know, but group singing improves mood, fosters social connection, decreases stress. Those we all feel very good about. This is the most fragile one. We believe it to be true. We do not have good evidence yet, but these are 4 areas that we're targeting. Communication benefits of group singing. I'm sure we are missing things here. We keep learning about things all the time. Swallowing is not on the list, for example, but vocal quality, speech fluency, speech prosody improvements, speech perception improvements, and changes in how the brain processes sound. Pulmonary function, communication, confidence. That one seems to keep coming up. People who are engaging in choir just walk away feeling more confident about communicating in other contexts.
Okay, thanks, Frank. So we're generating a lot of knowledge, which is awesome. And there's a lot of researchers in the room, but there's also non-researchers who are interested in what we have to say. So the second pillar of SingWell is the knowledge mobilization. So this is how are we getting our findings to the people that need it most. So we have a few goals with our knowledge mobilization. The first is building public awareness of the benefits of singing. So this is for people who are living with communication challenges, their caregivers, practitioners who run singing groups and realize now that they can run singing groups for people with communication challenges, speech language therapists that realize they can be incorporating singing into their practice. We want to inspire more practitioners to start using singing groups, and we're trying to equip them with the information and tools that they need. So this is where the work package 1 is really important, where we're collecting information from directors of groups like this. What are their best practices? What are they doing and why? So that we can build a best practice guide and share it with people to show them that they can do this too. It's not that hard. It doesn't take that much training to run a group like this. It's as simple as a sing-along to reap some of these benefits. So we want to communicate that to people and start providing more access to group singing across Canada and beyond. We want to ensure singing groups are available and accessible. So we're doing this in a few different ways. We'll have to go back to that slide after, but yeah, let's just show the map. So we've been creating this group singing map on our SingWell website, where we've been trying to track down all the singing groups across Canada that are providing support for people with communication challenges. It's color coded depending on the population, depending on whether it's online. So this is going to be a very useful tool for someone who's living with a communication challenge to find a choir near them but also for a doctor who wants to refer their client. So this is a tool that can be used by anybody to locate the nearest choir. If we can go back one. Yeah, our last knowledge mobilization goal is to advocate for a singing on prescription model of care. So as Frank mentioned, we're trying to gather enough evidence that we can feel confident advocating that this should be implemented in our medical system, and that there's buy-in from policymakers, decision makers, doctors to be referring their clients to singing groups. We're going to be hearing a lot more about that this afternoon with Dr. Jane Gozine. Another way that we're spreading our word is through our speaker series that was initiated by Kathy Mackin-Clapton, who is online, I believe. Hi, Kathy. She'll be presenting some of her findings from her best practice guide research later today, but she's helped us initiate this speaker series where we're bringing together a researcher, a practitioner who's running a singing group, and somebody with lived experience who's singing in that group on a particular topic, so working with a specific population. So we dive deeper into each population once a month. So for example, a few weeks ago, we had our singing and Parkinson's seminar. Dr. Yoon Irons in the room presented the research on singing and Parkinson's. We also had Heather Forsyth and Tim Haig join us. So Heather is a practitioner, a music therapist who's been running groups for people living with Parkinson's. And Tim Haig is the executive director of U-Turn Parkinson's, which is an organization in Winnipeg, for people living with Parkinson's, and an avid singer in the U-Tunes singing group. If you're interested, our next session is on November 15th. Mark your calendars. This will be for lung health, and we'll be hearing from Dr. Gunter Kreutz, who I believe will also be joining us online. And Dr. Louise Johann, who we'll hear from later today as well about her singing group for people with lung disease. And there will be also a person with lived experience join us. We just don't have their name yet. Okay, so as we mentioned, we submitted our midterm report yesterday at 4:55. And SingWell has a lot to be proud of, the work that we've been doing over the last several years. So thank you to everybody who sent back their forms and answered all the questions from our project managers. We appreciate the time and effort because it was really exciting to be able to report what we reported, the numbers. So we have initiated 3 international large-scale surveys. So that's the Work Package 1 survey. We have one more that's almost out the door, but we are collecting information about barriers and facilitators to group singing, what people think they're getting out of singing, and some of these outcomes that we've been talking about. We've seeded 16 new research-based singing and chanting groups. So these are groups that would not have existed without the research, and many of them are now continuing beyond the research. They're embedded within the organization or the hospital in which they were formed. And we have been working on 5 different multi-site studies. So there's a hearing loss multi-site with 7 sites. We'll be hearing from Chi about that. Aphasia has 4 sites. Stuttering has 2 sites. We actually just took saliva from our participants last night in this room. Newcomer, we have 2 sites, and we're going to hear from Dr. Isabel Peretz right after this about that. And Parkinson's, we actually just met with Dr. Yoon Irons yesterday to begin conversations around the Parkinson's multi-site. So we're really excited about this line of research. We think this is really going to push our message forward. Another pillar that we don't often talk about with SingWell is our student training. So we have trained over 50 students through the SingWell project, which is amazing. We've had 26 undergraduates, 11 master's students, 6 PhDs, 5 postdocs, and 3 summer interns. We started our summer internship. This summer was our first time doing that, and it was a success. I think we'll be hearing from some of our interns, maybe not, but it was a great success. The students were, we supported their travel to a lab in Canada. There was a few in Canada and one in Germany.
wanted to say it's Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal.
Right. And we're sending one to Germany, where they can learn different data collection instruments and different strategies for this type of research. And our project updates, our outputs, together we have done 22 presentations, 13 interviews. We have 7 peer-reviewed journal articles, 1 book chapter, 3 articles in popular media, 2 reports, 11 artistic performances, and 16 other, which mostly are newsletters that we spread far and wide. We have hundreds of people who are receiving our newsletter quarterly. So not all of our groups opt into performances. Many of the groups are just sort of come, sing, have fun, and go home without working towards a presentation. But we do have some groups that want to be working towards something. So that's where these artistic performances, they were choir performances like these 2 that we hosted this fall. So looking to the next 3.5 years towards the completion of the grant, we aim to continue conducting high quality research. We aim to continue these multi-site studies and collecting that important data. We'll continue to disseminate our knowledge to all the key players. So that's the individuals living with communication challenges, their caregivers, the practitioners, policy decision makers, doctors, name it. We'll be developing the best practice guides and hoping to distribute those, along with an accreditation program that we're developing. So the idea here is that individuals that come from different backgrounds, so they might come from speech language therapy, they might come from music therapy, they might come from social work, that want to lead a group like this. We're going to be developing an accreditation program so they can learn the necessary information from each different background, from each field, and feel confident being able to lead a group like this.
Maybe I'll just jump in with an unprogrammed aside, and it's a bit premature, but there's a new medical school that's being launched next fall here at our university, and it takes up a lot of attention when there's a new medical school, and they're going to take all the resources. Sorry, I didn't say that, but it's very exciting, and we've had a number of really fruitful conversations about integrating singing into the curriculum for new MDs, and it's being really well received. So we'll either do this through micro-credentials or through interspersing different aspects of group singing through the curriculum. So, for example, in neurological disorders, in psychosocial health. So that's an exciting new development.
We'll also start a choir for the medical students and the teachers, because that's something that every group we've talked with, they feel really excited about. Like, why aren't we singing? So that's another, maybe we can track some of our main outcomes with those groups. And our last goal here, I've established a singing on prescription model, which we've spoken a lot about. So this is something we're going to continue working towards, continue amassing the information and advocating for social prescribing. Different ways to get involved. I mean, you're all involved already, but you can join our network as a research member, as a practitioner, or a partner organization. There are summer internships for students who are interested in trying out a new lab and learning something different. And you can subscribe to our newsletter and stay connected with all of the opportunities to get involved. Thank you.